Hello, magandang umaga po. Okay, palakpakan muna tayo magang-maga. Ayan. So dito po, magsosolve po tayo ng mga tutorial problems para sa ating transformer. So example number 1. So we have the number of turns on the primary and secondary windings of a single-phase transformer are 350 and 35 respectively. If the primary is connected to a 2.2 kilovolts 50 Hz supply, determine the secondary voltage on no load. So, number 1. So, una-una, alamin natin yung ating mga primary. So, primary is equivalent to 350. Tsaka yung secondary natin is equivalent to 35 turns. Okay? So, ayan po. Tapos, yung ating voltage is yung ating, if the primary voltage, also V sub 1 is equal to 2.2 kilovolts, 50 Hertz, determine the secondary voltage. So, hinahanap natin si V sub 2. So, napakadali. B2 over B1 is equivalent to N2 over N1. So, dito, makukuha natin si V2 is equivalent to N2 over N1 times B1. So, N2 natin, secondary. So, this is N2 and this is N1. Ayan. So, N2 is 35 turns over 350 turns times B1 is 2.2 kilovolts. So, makakompute natin siya as equivalent to 220 volts. So, may sagot na tayo. 220 volts. Okay? So, number 2. Number 2. Asya ba? Yan. Number 2 is a 3,000 to 200 volts, 50 Hz. So, ibig sabihin, step down siya. A single-phase transformer is built on a core having an effective cross-sectional area of 150 cm squared and has 80 turns in the low-voltage winding. Calculate A, the value of the maximum flux density in the core, and B, the number of the maximum the number of turns in high voltage winding. Okay, so number 2. So alalahanin natin 3,200 single phase 150 cm squared yung area natin. 80 turns in the low voltage winding. So ibig sabihin nasa secondary siya. Okay. Alamin natin sagot. Na rin tayo mag-solve. So, ano po ba yung mga given? So, ang mga given po natin ay 3,000, number 2, 200 volts, 50 Hertz. Tapos, ano pang given natin? 150 cm squared. So, cross-sectional area to ng ating core. Tapos, 80 turns in the secondary. So, ibig sabihin ito ay N2. N2. Calculate the value of maximum flux density in the core. So, maximum flux density tsaka yung pangalawa ay number of turns in the high voltage winding, N1. Sa una muna, compute natin si maximum flux density or pwede natin compute na muna si N1 para ratio and proportion lang. So, N1 over N2 is equal to V1 over V2. So, malalaman natin na si N1 is equivalent to V1 over V2 times N2. So, N1 is equivalent to V1 natin ay 3,000, V2 natin ay 200, times N2 is 80 turns. So, this is equivalent to, so, tanggalin natin dalawang 0, 30 divided by 2 is 15 times 80. So, 15, 30 times 4, 40, 1,200 turns. Yan, di na nakita. Yan. So, meron tayong 1,200 turns. Kasunod, flux M, yung flux natin. So, may formula tayo na, sulat muna natin yung formula. Dito na lang sa taas. So, V1 is equal to 4.44 FPN1. So, ito yung formula niya. Pwede rin natin sa gamiting V2. So, V2 is equal to 4.44 FPN2. Okay? Kaya lang, ginamit ko kasing pang-compute ay yung ating N1. So, flux density is equivalent to, so, V1 over 4.44, F is 50 Hertz, and N1 is 1,200 turns as what we have computed earlier. So, ayan. So, flux M is equal to V1 is 3,000 volts. 3,000 over 4.44 times 50 times 1,200. This is equivalent to 0.001126126. So, yan po ang value ni flux M natin. Okay? Weber. So, ang inaalam po natin ay yung ating flux density. So, ang ating inaalam po ay flux density. Maximum flux density. So, para malaman natin si flux density, ang ginagawa lang natin dyan, ang ating flux, di-divide natin ng area. So, given naman yung area, so, compute na lang natin, 0.001126126 divided by 150 cm squared. Kaya lang, naka-centimeter to, kaya i-convert natin sa per meter. So, 100 cm squared divided by 1 meter. Hindi pa. Yan. I-squared natin. Saan natin i-squared? So, this is equivalent to 0.75 Weber per meter squared. So, yun na po yung sagot natin. Okay? So, meron na tayong number 2. Number 3. Number 3. Kasya ba? Yan. A 3,300, 230 volts, 50 Hz single phase transformer is to be worked at a maximum flux density of 1.2 Weber per meter squared in the core. The effective cross-sectional area of the transformer core is 150 cm squared. Calculate the suitable value of the primary and secondary turns. So, kukunin natin yung primary tsaka yung secondary turns. Okay? So, number 3. 3. So, tingnan muna natin yung mga given. 3,300, 230 volts, 50 hertz. Flux density is 1.2 Weber per meter squared. And area is equal to 150 centimeters squared. So, dito makukuha natin si flux. So, that is equivalent to 1.2 Weber per meter squared times 150 centimeters squared. Kung convert natin para makancel yung centimeter sa meter, so times natin ng 1 meter per 100 centimeter sa natin squared. So, ayan. Then, mako-compute natin si flux as equivalent to 0.018 Weber. Okay? So, meron na tayong 0.018 Weber. So, ang kailangan naman natin ngayon ay makompute si number of turns. Pag kinompute natin si N1, makocompute natin ay mas maliit yung number of turns ng N1 natin. Nasa high voltage side. Kailangan kasi dito magsisimula ka sa low voltage side. So, 230 volts. Doon tayo magsimula. N2 muna tayo. N2 is equivalent to 230 volts all over 4.44 times, ano yung hertz natin? 50 times, ano yung ating flux? 0.018. Yan. So, makompute natin si N2 as approximately 57.55. So, even dapat to 58 number of turns. After that, saan natin ko-computein si N1 using voltage transformation ratio. Okay, so N2 over N1 is equivalent to V2 over V1. So, dito, makukuha natin si N1 as equivalent to N2 times V1 over V2. So, N2 is 58 times, ano yung V1 natin? 3,300 over 230. Okay? So, this is approximately 832.17 turns. Hindi na nakita. Yan, kita na natin. Siyempre, i-convert na lang natin, i-round off na lang natin 832 number of turns. Yun ang sagot. So, we have 832 primary and 58 secondary. So, yun na po. Kasunod, number 7. Ito namang number 7. Kasya na ba? Ayan, kasya na. Nababasa? Palakpakan muna tayo. Ayan, tama yung mga sagot natin eh. A single phase transformer has 500 primary and 1,200 secondary turns. The net cross-sectional area of the core is 75 centimeters squared. If the primary winding be connected to a 400 volts 50 Hz supply, calculate the peak value of the flux density in the core and the voltage induced in the secondary winding. So dito, computein na lang natin si induced in the secondary winding. So yung ating number 7 ay computein na lang muna natin si induced voltage. Okay? Sige. So, una muna, kailangan nating malaman yung ating mga given. Ano po ba yung given natin sa number 7 natin? So, primary is 500 turns and secondary is equal to 1,200 turns. Area of the core is 75 centimeters squared and 400 volts yung ating primary. Primary voltage is equivalent to 400 volts. So, alamin po natin yung ating induced voltage sa secondary. So, B1 over B2 is equivalent to N1 over N2. So, dito, kailangan nating makuha si secondary voltage. Secondary voltage. Ito yung hinahanap natin. So, V2. So, V2 is equivalent to B1 times N2 over N1. Okay. So, makakompute na natin si B2. B2 is equal to V1 is, ano yung V1 natin? 400 volts. Times N2 is secondary 1,200 turns all over 500. Okay. Cancel yung dalawang zero natin. So, 12 times 400 divided by 5. This is approximately equal to 960 volts. O, yun na po ang sagot natin. 960 volts.